Hi, it's Paul Banis with GreatDad.com, and I'm here with my weekly series talking to modern dads. And I've got a good guest here who I think is going to have a lot of practical application for dads of teens. So, welcome, Rahz Slaughter.
Thank you so much, Paul. I'm excited to be here. Looking forward to a great show.
Yeah, well, so this is an area that maybe we've underserved a little bit because there's probably not enough, there are not enough podcast episodes to cover how complicated this time of life is for a lot of people. I got the warning in like middle school, like this is going to be hell, it's part of life. You've got to get ready for it. It's going to be like a battle every day. And I'm like, oh my God, are my kids going to just suddenly turn into demons? So I'm interested to what your perspective is. So first of all, I want to know why you got interested in the teen world. Your kids are a little bit older now, so obviously you've gone through it. But what led your curiosity?
Yeah, I mean, what led me to wanting to work with teens was I remember and I recall being a teen and struggling with just identity, struggling with understanding who I was, what my strengths were. And I didn't have a father figure in my life or a male role model to really kind of guide me and be that North Star and say, hey, Rahz, this is the way you go. This is the way you speak. This is the way you show up. And I felt lost. I felt lost and confused. And as I worked with thousands of different teens, whether it be in my fitness facility, whether it be in my teen life coaching facility, it really started to dawn on me that it was just as confusing for them as it was for the parents. And if you have two confusing sides, you're going to have a lot of conflict and disconnection. And I wanted to be the conduit for helping bringing that together.
Yeah, I totally get that. I also didn't have a father present, and it was a really confusing time. And I bet it's confusing both, like you say, for the kid who's going through hormonal changes and that need to pull away, and then for the parent where suddenly there is this change where they were the little buddy who tagged along all the time, and then suddenly they're not, and that can cause conflict. So you do hear different people have different experiences during this time. It isn't necessarily all bad. My kids were relatively, gentle kids. They did pull away, and that was hard emotionally. But we did not go through that same the really tempestuous time that you do often hear about. Do you have any in your experience? I mean, I suppose you deal with people who do have they are going through more difficult times. But in your experience, have you seen anything that seems to lead to that kind of real aggressive rebellion, or is it just luck of the draw?
Yeah, well, it's personality. So it's
Okay. Oh, that's
not
good.
luck, it's personality. Every child has a personality that they are going to be just a little bit more connected to, whether they're someone who's going to be goal driven, where maybe they're just a little bit more laid back, California chill. These children are all different. And what I've found is that parents tend to try to parent the kid they wish they had rather than the one they actually
So
had.
true.
So the one that we expected, oh, it's going to be the Ivy League straight to the moon. Or if you're an athlete, oh, they're going to be the best NCAA champion in the world. And what happens is when that doesn't show up that way, they're not prepared. Now, they're like you said, your kids were a little bit easier, their personalities. We do understand that gene and development and nurture and all of that has a play, but some kids naturally have some different challenges. And when those challenges show up and we expect them to be a certain way, they'll manifest as behavior challenges when they're really not just, they're not behavior challenges, they're just confusion for them. They think a different way, they act a different way, they feel different things. And if parents are so focused on one area and that's what they're focused on, that's what they're going to get. And so I try to help parents understand that we don't want to judge the child on behavior. We want to see their personality as their strengths and their limitations, and then connect and say, how do we work on those limitations together so that we can really see the best person that you can be?
Yeah, that's kind of like a guiding principle of good parenting is like meet them where they are, know what your kid is versus what you want them to be. So you went through some troubled times when you were a kid. You had real bad grades, maybe some other issues. How did you feel looking back? Do you recognize where that was, where your personality had this disconnect, or were you naturally rebellious, or you're naturally whatever?
Yeah, no, I definitely wasn't rebellious, but I did have some academic challenges. See, I was born with my right leg shorter than the other. I have no quadricep or hamstring on my right leg.
Oh,
So basically, for those who are listening and watching, my leg is fixed at an angle with no, so you need your quadricep to extend your knee and your hamstring to flex it. I wasn't born with it, a 3.5 inch difference between my right and my left leg.
oh,
So I was picked on, I was bullied, I was made fun of, and I came from a real impoverished background. And so that made it even harder on me being a short kid with crutches on the little short bus. So I was a target. And so school became just really hard for me. And then I didn't know at the time, but I was dyslexic. I had a little bit of attention deficit. And these are things that weren't really brought out in school. They kind of just, oh, you just need a little extra help, or you're the talkative kid, you're the rambunctious one. I was only rambunctious because I couldn't stay focused because I didn't understand.
mhm.
And if we would have had some assistance in that process, I think that school would have been a little bit less, I guess, difficult for me. And I wouldn't have had such a challenge in middle school and in high school. But I had to go through a process of personal development to learn my own learning styles. And that's what I try to help parents recognize today is that not all kids are going to learn. If they're getting bad grades, it might not be a grade thing. We need to focus on, is it an effort thing? Is it a learning thing? And then once you can pinpoint that, then we can find a solution.
Yeah, that the whole bullying thing is just it's so common. It's probably become maybe less physical than it used to be, and in my day, I was bullied too during different periods of my childhood. And it is a horrible time because the parents don't seem to know. They like, again, they wish, they're basing, they wish it they're on the kid they wish they had, the kid who's maybe the bully or the stronger kid rather than the kid who's trying to get through it. And it's a very lonely time for kids. You have some rules about bullying or advice that you give to stop bullying. Could you talk about that a little bit?
Sure. Well, I like to define because, like, a lot of times we call everything bullying. You and I, myself, we probably don't believe that bullying is the same thing because it's changed today, right?
Yeah.
Everything, if I said to you, Paul, I don't like blue. The color blue is horrible. That's not bullying. That's just my opinion, right? And one of the things that I help teens and their parents understand is clarity is important.
Oh
So
yeah.
when I'm telling a kid, hey, you know what? I've been bullied. Tell me about that. What exactly happened? What's the facts and what's the story, right? And so often the story doesn't line up with the facts. And then when I help a teen or younger person say, hey, you know what? You weren't bullied. This person just has a behavior or an opinion, a belief about something. Let me teach you about your beliefs. And when we can unpack their beliefs about certain things, if you have that belief, someone else might not believe that. And if you tell them, they're going to feel like you're bullying them. So we want to discern between what's this and what's that. And that helps, first of all, give them clarity on what is bullying. Now, there are bullies out there, right? And what are a bully? A bully is someone who's also probably been hurt. So I help diffuse and redirect that energy where I'm going to teach my teens how to become more confident and self-aware so that they don't allow a bully to affect them as long as it's not physical. Because words, like you and I know, words don't hurt, right? They hurt a little bit, but you don't have to let them hurt because you give them meaning. And
Right.
now we're just redirecting that energy. Too often I found parents are calling everything bullying. And this is why this word bully has become so overused today.
Mm.
And we have more victims instead of victors. So the way you combat bullying is you educate and inform a child on what it is, what's a fact, what's a story, and then you help them become resilient in that moment so that they can stand and say, you know what? You don't like red? That's okay. I love your opinion. Thank you so much, Paul. I really do appreciate that. And just you take and you move on and you find someone who does like red and you communicate and connect with that person. Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
Yeah, well, I think that those are the real skills that you learn. I mean, I know through my bullying experience, and not that it was pleasant and not that I would advocate for bullying, but it did teach me along the way some of the skills that I had to learn to be to use some of those interpersonal skills like the complimenting or getting ahead of it, trying to develop relationships, trying to be more positive in things that seem to diffuse a lot of the situations. Now, you're talking about two different worlds here. There, maybe the bullying of the past and the bullying of the now are very different, but I remember the kind of bullying where you're getting slammed up against the locker, or you're getting beaten up in the playground. That is not something that is helpful, and it's hard to diffuse. And if you went through that, you probably have a different idea of what bullying could be. But I understand your point. If more people are coming and redefining the idea of bullying, that has to be discussed with a child and by somebody maybe like you, like as a coach, rather than as a parent, because I think parents get into kind of a difficult situation when they're trying to ask questions that to the child seem like you're not taking my side, or you're not understanding what I'm talking about. I'm going through something right now, and you're asking me questions like, does this even exist?
Yeah, I absolutely. I understand what you're saying. Like, what I think a lot of parents, you want to listen twice as much as you speak.
Sure.
So you're listening to your kid to really find out what's really going on. And they want to be heard in that moment. So you don't need to fix it right away. You want to kind of listen and go, okay, little Johnny, tell me what happened. Okay, that happened. Absolutely. Did we try this? Did we speak to your teacher? And you're right that at first but I want to empower parents, because parents have to be their advocate for their children. Dads, moms, guide, anybody who's got influence over a child needs to be that advocate and be the number one person educating their child on how to navigate this world out there, because we can't wait and go, passively think that teachers and the government and schools and everybody's going to fix things. We as parents, and especially on this show, right, dads have to step up and say, this is my obligation. This is my responsibility. And if I don't know it, they need to connect with people like us, watch podcasts, listen to podcasts, and go out there and get the information so that they can equip their children to be resilient, strong, and positive, and just moving forward.
Yeah, it is interesting that, guys will listen to podcasts on like sports endlessly, but when it comes to something like parenting, it's like, I don't need any help on that. And clearly a lot of people do need some guidance, especially if you didn't, like we didn't grow up with a father present, and you don't have role models in your inner circle that are showing you how to be that kind of dad who can be strong in a non-threatening way, but also vulnerable in another way to make that communication work. Another tangent that you talk about when you have a child who starts talking back, and I remember this happening in our household. We seem to quell it pretty fast, but I know in a lot of families, this is a constant issue where everything the dad or mom says is like, you're stupid, or whatever to make the parent feel even worse. So what do you advise on that? You say you've got a 3-step process.
Well, the first step is have a recalibration meeting with the family, because and this is, if you're a parent out there, this is one's going to punch you a little bit in the gut. You have to think, if your kid is really being defiant, back talking, and speaking to you in a tonality that's not respectful, who gave them that ability?
Right.
Who provided that opportunity? See, I knew I was raised by a grandmother who told me very easily, hey, this is what we do, this is what we don't. Here are my expectations, and don't cross them. Here are my consequences, right? So the first step is have that calibration meeting. Hey, we're going to come together. I know that I gave you a little bit too much rope and you almost hung yourself. So what I want you to do is we're going to bring this in. And the second thing is show understanding tonality. What does that mean when you're speaking to an elderly or a parent? From 1 to 5, that's okay. Everybody gets a little heated at times. Everybody we all know that, right? But when you get between 5 and 7, that's borderline disrespectful. 7 or above, that is disrespectful. And when a kid understands those levels, you can easily say, hey, little Johnny, you're at a 6. And he understands, right? But the third step is monitoring yourself, being self-aware of what you're going. If you're using an 8 in the car when someone cuts you off, that's programming. You're programming that child to react rather than respond. And if that's the case, then they're just modeling your behavior. So you got to look in the mirror, parents, and go, okay, if little Johnny and little Debbie aren't doing what I want them to do, and they're being defiant and back talking, where did they learn it? And then correct it. And the way you correct it, by setting the expectations, educating and communicating, and that is how you recalibrate your family so that everybody's working on the same page.
Yeah, I think a lot of parents probably worry that the horse is out of the barn. It's too late now. We've been enduring this back talk for a year or two, and I just wish you could stop. What do you do in cases like that where it has now become that's just the way our family is? We just all scream at each other all the time.
Well, I mean, I came from a screaming family, so I know exactly what that looked like, and I knew I didn't want that to be my family, right. And that's the first thing. And I don't know if you're a big fan of Jim Rohn, but if anyone's out there a listener of Jim Rohn, he says we're not a tree, we can all change. So like you have to change your beliefs about your parenting style in order for you to get the outcome and the results you want within your family. And so often if you go, that's just the way it is, if that's just the way it is, that's just the way your children will be. And I always tell them, hey, if you guys are calling me, it's because something's not working. And I can give you tactics and strategies that will correct that. But you got to be willing to roll up your sleeves and do the work. And the work means consistency, meaning it's setting the standards and going, this is what our family. One of the first things that I did in my family is I said, let's sit down and talk about our family values.
Yeah.
Because there's certain things that really mean something to me. Integrity, right? Being honest, respect are really high on my level. And I wanted my children to know that. I wanted all of our family to know that. So then now when we say things within the family, it's just natural. It's right. Consistency is how you really going to instill these types of beliefs and values within a family.
Yeah, I'm glad you say that. I have a course called The Intentional Father, and that's basically where you start off is defining your own values and defining those values that you want in your family. And that does set a tone, because if you repeat them, especially if you start early, the kids know that those are the value. Like respect is one of the values in our family. I respect you, you respect me. It's a two-way street. If I go overboard, you can call me on it too. Yes. That goes a long way, but the earlier you start on defining those, the stronger your family will be and more in sync, I believe. I mean, obviously things can change, but yeah. You also talk about the personality parenting method, which I was curious as to what, if that's a different style, a different way of parenting, how it interacts with maybe peaceful parenting or those type of philosophies.
Yeah, it's different. And it's because and the reason it's different is that you're learning to basically parent the child and through a personality assessment. And it breaks down into 4 colors. Now, this is something that I would love to say, oh, I created it. Dr. Hartman, Taylor Hartman from the Color Code created it. And I found it because I was having some challenges with one of my sons. And I really wanted to connect with him. And when I found this, I was like, wow, I love this. It's business and red, yellow, white, and blue. And it all has a driving core motive. So if you're a red, you're vision oriented. If you're a blue, you're intimate. If you're a white, you're peace. If you're yellow, you're all about fun. We were all born with a certain personality, as we spoke about earlier, right? So when you're able to identify a color and then know the strengths and the limitations, a parent can really parent the specific personality of that child, but they also know their own personality. So now we're talking the same language, no matter what. If you want little Johnny to do something, like my son's a blue, he's very self-critical. He's very intimate and feeling connected, right? I'm a red. I'm all about drive, go after that, get done. So he played basketball, and I wanted him to play basketball and be the best player in the world. But how did I believe he would do that? Get up early, stay up late, always working out, 100% focused. But that's not him. That wasn't his style. And what I've learned is that he was very relaxed and chill. So if I kept parenting it like a red, we were going to have a lot of disconnect. So if you want to parent the personality, utilize personality assessment will help you understand your kid. You're going to be able to connect with them in the language that they speak, and that's going to lower the conflict that you're going to have with that child.
Yeah, in general, I'm a little bit cynical about those testing methodologies, except maybe you and I share the same perspective, is that they're very helpful in increasing awareness of things that are there, could be there, so that you can strengthen relationship rather than just putting people in a box and saying, you know, you're always going to be like this, or there you go again, you're being a blue. Versus, right, you know, people are malleable and changing. But I think it comes back to also whatever you need, whatever tools you need to know your kids better and to understand maybe how they think differently than you do, so you can relate to them on their level. That's the key thing.
Absolutely, 100%. Like we have Myers-Briggs, we have Strength Finders. There are tons of them, right? Yeah. But they all break down, and it's a tool. I don't say it's like, and I don't say there's one color better than another. I use it as the beginning into when I'm working with a family, and whether they work with me or not, this is something that now they have that self-awareness. And there are some principles where I found when you're working with a teen, they're confused. So when you give them this and they're like, wow, yeah, now I understand why I feel that way. Oh, I see things this way. Well, because kids some of them are kinesthetic, some of them are more visual, auditory. And when they start to connect that, now they're able to express themselves to their parents and say, hey, this is what's going on inside of me, because it's such a confusing time. They don't know, with the hormones going, with the school going, with post-pandemic happening. There's so many things that are making it difficult for them to navigate life at this point in their lives. And having a tool just gives them the guiding light to which way they're going and why they're going that way.
Yeah, very helpful. We also talk a lot about resilience on this show, and we talked a little bit beforehand about how dads can be more resilient, what ways they can model for their kids. Because I think the second part is, how can you teach resilience to your kids? And probably the biggest way is to model resilience. How can dads become more naturally resilient?
That's a great question. I think that one of the things is you have to be intentional, and you have to seek out the change you need. As I believe in parenting, this is a show for dads, right? If you want to be a better dad, you're going to have to, if you don't have a tool for the job, you got to go out and acquire that tool. You got to go buy the tool. You got to go find the tool. And that means doing this, listening to podcasts, hiring a coach, going to a class. I see you have a ton of books behind you. I do as well. Reading books, right? That is how you acquire more information, so that now your toolbox is filled with the right tools you need to solve different situations in life. And resilience being one of them. And it's one that I know you and I were talking about, I feel like is the essential ingredient for all dads. And I knew it was for me growing up with a disability, growing up in poverty. I had to manifest resilience, because every turn that I had in life had a dead end. And I learned that, hey, you know what? In the great book by Carol Dweck, Mindset, like you have or growth mindset. Well, that's part of it, right? When you have a growth mindset, you're going to be resilient. You're not going to see a dead end. You see opportunity where others don't. And as a father, I really believe that we have to go, okay, if my son is struggling, where can I learn something to give them the tool and show them that I'm doing it, not just talking about it? Because so often we tell and we lecture, but we're not leading from the front. And that is a key ingredient to being resilient dads.
Yeah, I just had a guest, Eugene Williams, on the other week, who talked about knowing your why, just starting out with your why. That's one of the key elements, and even in developing resilience, and seems so basic. And maybe that part of that is being your why as being a dad, what being a father is to you, understanding that and putting it down so you aren't, all over the place, wavering, taking every moment as it comes without any kind of roadmap or guidance.
Yeah, I mean, I love that you said starting with your why, right? Because how often it's clarity. I break everything down into the 3 C's, but clarity is that. And when you have the why, you know why you want to do something. So when someone says to me, if someone said, why do you work with teens? Well, because I was a dysfunctional teen, came from a dysfunctional background, and I wanted to be something that I could impact the world. And that's what I worked on. Right? Why do you work out? Because I saw so many people that were unhealthy and that weren't living the life that they wanted to live. And I didn't want to age and go, oh, I can't move. I can't walk. I'm immobile. So that's my why. And it's the same thing with, when you're talking to parents and they only want to focus on grades, I tell them instantly, you know what? Your kid, why are they in school? Why do they want to go to college? What would they like to learn in college? Not what are you going to get a good job and then you're going to retire and you're going to, they don't want to hear that.
Yeah, very far away. Yeah, having that clarity is really important. I think in my course I talk about starting with the end in mind. The Stephen Covey kind of approach is, what kind of kids do you want to develop it, but that's also partly what kind of kids do you have and what's going to drive them. So you want to instill certain values, and you want, at the end of the day, when you let them loose onto the world, that they are a certain way, whether they're a doctor or a lawyer or whatever, whatever that is. I don't really care, except that they are able to function in society and have some of that resilience and an ability to know who they are and have some sort of a compass. I think there's a lot of debate right now about whether we're doing a disservice to them in saying, all I want you to do is be happy, because some people interpret that as, you don't need a job, you don't need to work out in the world. And I don't think we want that. And I think I may have failed my kids a little bit too much in focusing on, I just want you to have satisfaction. And I'm still wrestling with that today. My kids are 20 and 24. I don't know what the answer is. I constantly hear, people are always trying to get you to parent out of fear, that if you aren't hard on them, if you don't make them feel bad and don't make them feel like they're going to miss out, they won't have that drive. Versus, I think what you and I would probably agree with is trying to find what those drives are so that they can maximize in the stuff that they're naturally good at and driven by.
Absolutely. I do. I agree. I think that we do agree on that. And I don't think you failed. I think that when we're imparting something great in the opportunity, like I truly believe, like I tell my kids, you can do anything, but there's certain things you can't do. Like I love the NBA, but I'm never going to play in it. I'm 5'3". So that just was not going to happen. I'm vertically challenged. But what I will share with you is that if some kids have strengths that are good at math, my son's going to go, he's going to be an engineer. One of my sons is not great in math. He's not going to be an engineer, but I'm not going to tell him. I said, hey, if you want to learn it, go ahead, try it. Fail forward. We'll pick you up and we'll keep moving forward. And I think that's that positive reinforcement is so important today. And not just saying, hey, you know what, sit on the couch and play video games, because that ain't going to work in my house. But what I will say is that I want you to live a great life. That's what I think all parents want. They want their kids to be able to go out into the world, like you said, and thrive and not just survive.
I love that fail forward idea, because if there's any time in your life that you can do that, it's now. And
yes.
when we're talking to a 20 and 25-year-old, you remember all the things that you did during that time period in your 20s, where hopefully you were doing things that were positive, that were experiential, that were positive things, not rather versus robbing banks or whatever. But you had every one of those experiences, whether they were good or bad, it was a time for failing and learning. And then when you get a little bit older, it's the time you look back on and say, wow, I did XYZ there. I'm not in the NBA, but I was in that high school championship. Whatever the thing is that you did is during that time period, especially, is the stuff that you really hold on to, is the wide tapestry of life that we're trying to all kind of create for ourselves, that gives us meaning when we're a little bit older. Was there anything related to, other than the modeling, for teaching kids resilience that you'd want to share? Or is it?
Yeah. Well, when I'm teaching kids about resilience, one of the main things I like to talk about is understanding your self-image. See, if you can understand your self-image, who am I? Right? And then your ideal self, who would I like to evolve into? That's going to help with the overall self-concept. And that's how you become resilient, because so often kids are not resilient out of fear. Oh, I'm not like this person. I'm not like Paul. I'm not as articulate.
Right.
And those, when we start to create that negative beliefs,
I just don't
pulls
have
us
that.
back.
I'm never going to be, because I can't do.
Exactly. And so that's one of the key elements, is being consciously aware of helping them evolve into their ideal self. And they have to do the work, sitting down with a vision board, sitting down, writing in a journal. This is stuff that kids are not doing a lot. And I say they're not doing it because their parents aren't doing it, right? We have to be proactive parents that are going to empower them to become their best selves. And that is the key to building resilient kids, especially with the modern kid that we're dealing with today.
Yeah, I hate that idea as you get older. When you get to my age, everybody's talking about the bucket list, and I hate that concept. That just seems so sad. But I do remember there was a management training class that I did back when I was about 30 years old, where they had all of us write down a list of, 25 or 50 things we wanted to accomplish in our life, like go to Europe, or work in a political campaign, whatever it was that turned us on. And then we had this list, and I think I still got it somewhere. I remember seeing it about 10, 15 years ago and checking the boxes where I accomplished things. And I wonder if that exercise would help with, maybe that's one of the exercises that you do when you talk about visioning, is trying to have them paint a picture of what their life would like to be with 50, 60 years of activity out in front of them. They have the time, they have the imagination.
Absolutely. I don't go that far, because with teens, they're so present-minded. But I do go, I like to say, hey, what would you like to do in the next 12 to 24 months? And and the reason being is that, and what could we reverse engineer? Because a lot of times they can't see themselves doing. We have a lot of kids today that have low
as adults. I mean, why should we be surprised that they can't?
Exactly. 100%. I've never written a business plan, because I know that 5 years from today, the business is going to look different. So, I mean, I think that's such a great, and we're talking about we're on a dad show. It's something that you can do to get connection. Have fun. think outside the box, whether it's writing your why, doing a vision board, journaling, playing Jenga, but these are opportunities for you to really connect. And when you connect, those are the moments that you and I didn't have growing up, right? Because I don't remember throwing the ball with my dad. I don't remember learning how to fix a car. But now my son knows how to dig a hole and put a new palm tree in the back because we did that just weekend, right? So those are the things, those are the moments that matter.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you've got boys. You probably did a lot of that. My daughter accuses me of not forcing her to do as many of those things that I had my son do naturally, like let's go and screw in this outlet or whatever. And I never asked my daughter because she wasn't into it. And some of those sex-based things are the fact that one child will quickly follow you and do something with you, whereas the other one is like, that doesn't interest me at all. And I'm not going to. And it's not that I excluded her as much as I followed the one who wanted to do some of those chores, was the one who got the experience. Anyway, this has been a really inspiring conversation. I know you do public speaking, you do coaching. You can find Rahz at unstoppableteenager.com, right? Right. And
Correct.
your offerings are there.
Absolutely. Paul, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Okay. Well, this has really been great. If you want to learn more about my approaches to developing resilience, I do a course and I invite people to do a free coaching session with me, which you can find at GreatDad.com/go, which will set you up for a free hour-long conversation on where you're seeing challenges in your everyday life at work and at home. And I have a program that can help directly with that, as I'm sure Rahz can do with you and your teenager, which sounds like a really great resource for a lot of parents that I know who are going through struggles. All right. Thanks a lot. And we'll see you next time. Bye.